Today we're at the Belfry and we're here with TaylorMade to go through a full bag fit. Now, I've obviously already been out to Carlsbad at the start of the year to hit the new 2i35 stuff, so I know it's great. I've got my specs and I've got my clubs. So what we've got today is Tom Irwin, National Club Golfers Tom. So Tom is a 48-year-old bloke, he's into his fitness, he's got 2 kids, he's a bit more representative of the average club golfer, so it's a bit like what you might go see if you went for a fitting. So we're going to run through full bag, drivers, woods, irons and wedges, and we're going to see if there's any difference we can make to his bag. He's got some comps coming up, he wants some new clubs, so let's get him really dialed in and hopefully improve his scores.
So with Tom's iron, it was actually quite an easy fit. He was using the current P7 CB irons, which he liked. Like the length, like the lie, like the windows that we were seeing. So it was again looking for them small details that we can improve. And again, Tom's a real good player, so feedback from him was really important in this process.
At those speeds, I would say that's pretty low in comparison to where I've been. I've been sort of middle 80s.
Yeah, that doesn't look like. I mean, obviously I've never played golf with you, but that doesn't look like you're giving it a hit. It's not very aggressive.
No.
Is that your normal?
Yeah. I think I play my best golf and I'm not very aggressive.
Okay. See, that for me, that looks like a real good swing. I would say that's probably a mile or 2 quicker. That's good. Yeah, 84.
Yeah, that's about where I've been.
Yeah, that was a more aggressive swing.
Yeah, there's a bit of just making sure I'm hitting the
golf
golf
What kind
ball.
of numbers do you work on with a carry with a 7-iron? 160, 165?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right, yeah. I'll be trying to, if I had 165 to like carry to the front of a green.
You'd be hitting 7.
I'd be worried about hitting 7.
And this is what, I don't want to, I wouldn't be the coach.
Yeah.
But I would say to you, you've hit 10 shots there, 9 shots. That's been the best. That's the best swing you've done at it.
Yeah.
It was
Hit it a bit harder.
Not harder, because then there's a crossover point of.
Yeah.
It becomes about giving it, too much of a hit. But it was just aggressive. It was purposeful.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Be a bit
really
slower.
good. His current gamer shaft was the Project X LZ, which he told me sometimes he felt like it could feel a little heavy. Me personally, I didn't think there was too much wrong with the weight, but I just think the feedback that shaft was giving him, and maybe he felt as though he had to commit a little bit harder to get that working. So I used that kind of information he gave me to make a suggestion of moving into a slightly different shaft with a different manufacturer in KBS. It's quite a specific feel to a Project X. The standard one, it's very bored. It's there. You don't get much feedback, which for the right player is great. When I watch it, I wouldn't say you necessarily look like a Project X player.
Okay.
As the original version, that has a little bit more feel. You can see the.
Because you tend to be someone who thumps it more, I guess, with a sort of.
I would say, somebody who gives it a hit.
Yeah. I had some KBS, a KBS shaft in some Nike irons once, which I really like. That
I was going to get you a KBS tour, because there's a bit of feel in there. It's something to make sure it flights it, make sure it gives it a bit of a spin.
Yeah.
As a profile, if I was looking at a graph, and just because a graph says it can be very different when a golfer gets it in the hands.
Yeah.
But you would look at that mid, and the KBS tour will be a mid, and that's a real baseline look at it. And I'd be doing that as the fitter and give it to you as a good player. How does this feel? What shot shape do you want to see? What's the window? It's certainly that partnership of working together with a better player, because you know what you want to see and what you want to feel.
Yeah. And what are you happy with those launch numbers then?
Yeah. There's nothing I'd be changed from there. When we touched on there about weakening it off slightly. Yeah. Again, I'm not seeing that at all.
No. I think I'd be worried about doing that as well, because I don't want to lose any distance, and I play a lot of my golf at windy places.
Yeah, if you are somebody that takes a bit of loft off it and you need to weaken the loft, what I do see from time to time is you will weaken the loft off on somebody's irons and they'll hit it further because it's got a bit more launch and a bit more spin to keep the ball up in the air. You're not in that category. Okay. If I did weaken yours off, would see a bit more flight, I think you'd lose a yard or two, nothing major, but I think we're good there in terms of that setup.
Yeah.
KBS, I told him would give him maybe a little bit more feel, a bit more smoother in the transition, which straight away after 2 or 3 hits, he felt that straight away, and he felt the ability to flight it and shape it that little bit easier, which ultimately was something that he was asking for into that new set. Great swing. I'd say that's going to come out 115, something like that.
I do. I mean, I would say that instantly I prefer that shaft.
Yeah, a bit more feel.
It feels friendlier.
Yeah, it's a counterbalance shaft there as well, so there's a bit more weight in the butt end of the shaft versus the way it's built in the tip. So the balance, the shaft.
I guess one thing I would say about what I've been working on with my golf and the equipment I've been using, like, I think if everything is a bit sort of heavy and kind of grown up for you, I think your instinct is to like lob yourself at it, isn't it? Where if it's lighter and smoother, I think you are trying to kind of
I wouldn't say you're a hitter. No, you're very smooth in the transition. Even when you've gone that little bit more aggressive, it's still not. It's still not. If you take two golfers, you've got John Rahm and a Luke Donald. I know speeds are different, but one, Rahm gives it a hit, doesn't he? Luke Donald's obviously very smooth. Loads of natural speed in there.
Yeah, that feels lovely. They feel lovely.
It was a really easy fit. It was me making a suggestion, but getting that feedback from Tom meant it was a real transition into them shafts and the performance. With tighter dispersion, we actually seen a little bit more speed. It's a counterbalance option in that shaft, so we take a little bit of weight away from the tip section, and it just felt he could feel where the head was, and he was a bit more committed with the shot, and say that the performance was very, very, very good. So what we've done, we've moved from the starting point being in the LS driver. Now, the feedback was obviously we were struggling a little bit with driver and trying to build that little bit of confidence. Now, there was such an array of different drivers within the bag. My job is just to kind of give Tom a little bit of confidence and give him something that he can start to commit to onto the course. You can see the yellow flag target, and then there's the one slightly to the right, yeah?
Yeah.
That's it. If you imagine that's a fairway, let's call it an Oakmont fairway, right? You're on the 18th tee, you're on a good score, but you've got to hit driver. How would you play that shot? How do you see that?
I'm glad you said that, because I was just thinking the same thing myself. What I'd want to do is I'd want to see a fade off the left-hand side.
But what would you do, though?
That is what I'd do.
Yeah.
But then I think it would go over here.
But them shots that you've just hit there for me, the 7 or 8 drivers that you've hit, I don't think you're seeing that shot, though, are you?
I was just working on my mechanic of trying to get it inside it.
Okay.
When I'm seeing the ball fly, on those shots, I was trying to manifest a draw, because I want to try and get my path neutral as possible.
Okay. But why are you changing that when I've given you a tight fairway?
I don't know that one.
Insecurity.
Pass.
Well, no, that's what it is. It's the anxious coming in, and we need to breed them shots and take that out onto the course and be committed. You've got to your strategy has got to be, I've just done a warm up on the range for half an hour, absolutely smoking drivers. Why am I going to get on the tee and go really anxious? I'm going to go left. I'm going to trap it and try and feed a little cut in. You don't need to do that.
So you think what I ought to do is just stand there and think, right, I'm going to just work on my mechanic.
Yeah, take that one thing, because I know from what you're telling me, you've got 18 things going through your head because you've got the fear.
Yeah.
Where then you had 4 processes. I'm just trying to get my path moving a little bit inside to get a bit more neutral. And
Yeah, okay.
so that tight fairway.
Yeah.
And you're going to work on that path, yeah?
There we go.
Just gets a bit stuck there, doesn't it?
Stuck?
Yeah, you don't look as though you're moving your bottom half nowhere near as good as what you did when you were just hitting it. It just gets a bit army, and you get the follow through seems delayed because you're not moving out the way.
Yeah, that's how it feels. Feels late. This guy's a genius. You're a genius. How do you know all these things about me without?
Such a better swing.
Yeah.
Way better. But look at your speed, because you're moving your bottom half. You're starting to clear. I mean, it was a bit low. It wasn't a perfect.
My path dropped 1.5
yeah.
as well.
I got him in the more forgiving head relative to where we start point with the LS. We've got in the standard or the core head. Don't want to change the weights at all. Kept that 13 gram weight at the back, 3 gram at the front. Great shot.
I think what you said when we first started doing this fairway thing was absolutely right, is that why are you standing there trying to hit a shot you're not rehearsing? Because my whole rehearsal's not going.
Yeah, you're doing that, and then you're doing the opposite, yeah.
Yeah. I had exactly, before when you were telling me, I had exactly that on, this is the kind of confusion that I'm amazed that you've got clarity on. I was playing at Woodall Spa, and the 13th there is about 460, and it's playing into the wind, and I'd only hit one driver all day. I thought I'm going to have to hit driver here. I didn't have to hit driver, actually, it was so bouncy, but I did. And the shots are fade all day long off a left-hand bunker. So I stood there, did my rehearsal, thought I want to fade it off that bunker, and I actually thought to myself, but you're not rehearsing a fade, you're rehearsing a draw.
You've got to see the shot.
Yeah.
And then you know
It doesn't matter what comes out, does it? As long as it's straight.
Yeah. Tom liked to feel the head that little bit more. So we went into a counterbalance shaft in the iron shaft, and I was kind of using that thought process into the driver. So we were at the Kylie CB Blue in the 60X. Seems to be working really well in the drivers this year as well. So that was kind of my go-to, and straight away the performance obviously lit up, but most importantly, it felt great for Tom. So when we got to Fairway Wood, Tom's Fairway Wood was performing really well. It was a nice flight on it, and it was just, you know, can we find them small percentage wins to get a new Fairway Wood in the bag? I think he liked this because it's got a load of loft, you know, nice off the tee, but also good, you know, popping it up off the Fairway Wood. I think moving into a slightly different shaft, we tried a few different options, but the one that performed best was actually the same shaft that we had in the driver, albeit a slightly different flex. We dropped the flex into a stiff, but we added more weight. So we can see here we've got the 6X and we've got a 75-gram stiff in this one. And that was more just because we got some good feelings with the driver. We started to build some confidence, and the way that Tom was reacting with his swing to this shaft was much more consistent. So we kept on getting that flight. We got the nice height, we got the spin parameters where we wanted, but crucially the dispersion started to gain a little bit tighter. Really good. I like that flight. Yeah. That was a good fairway wood, it was, and it was just them small percentages that we were looking for, and thankfully we did get that with this.
Feels like there's more golf club than that stealth. Like feels more solid.
Yeah.
Been trying to say that about a lot of the TaylorMade gear actually. Like Sim 2 never felt substantial.
Okay.
And I think these latest, the QI stuff just feels like there's more to it.
Okay.
Don't know what that means.
With Tom with the wedges, again, my call out with his current gamer set, that I didn't like the gap that he had from his pitching wedge, playing a 46 degrees and then moving into a 52. Knowing that he said he'd like to play them full shots with a 52, I was just concerned that we were going to have a little bit of a gap. And when we got the pitching wedge and the 52 in his gamers, we did start to see that little bit of a gap of what I'd like to see. Bit more aggressive, wasn't it? Good swing. So that I would say that was slightly more aggressive. I think you're dead on. 120 is your carry number with your wedge, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you think? What's the height like? Are we going to go stronger and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think 108.
It's not enough, is it?
Well, no, it's not, but I think that's the most you're going to get as well.
Yeah.
Where if we get like a nice 110 number,
yeah,
it will be a good spot to be in.
That's how I sort of feel like my wedges don't go far enough to justify carrying four.
You've got a 46 and then a 52, like it's...
Yeah.
So straight away, my suggestion would be moving into a 50 degree and then swapping out the 56 to a 54, because his current game setup was 52, 56, 60. He was using the current MG4 wedges, which he really liked. The only thing I wanted to change, I just wanted to get them sitting a little bit flatter. The starting point for the window was a little bit further left than what I would typically like to see. So just by getting them a little bit flatter, we're certainly hitting them windows of the shots that I would want to see, and obviously Tom would want to see as well. I would flatten it off slightly for you. They look as though they're just starting a little left. They come through a little strong.
Yes, I'd like, yeah.
Right, that's a good swing. That's how you should be, because you want to make sure you get a load of spin where it's going to be coming down. Let's see where that comes off. That's a good swing. Let's keep it there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like it.
Because in fairness, you also got to bear in mind if you're playing a parkland course, let's take a links out. If you're playing a parkland course or there's a bit of moisture,
Yeah.
you know that you can commit to that. You can actually knock it 2 or 3 yards past and it's going to zip to get back to that yardage anyway. You know, if you do lean on it a little bit more, you'll add a little bit more spin.
I like the idea of keeping it lower lofted, yeah.
So we were deliberating on whether to change the loft of the 54 to it sit right in the middle because we were going to keep that 60 degree in there. But that 54 was hitting that number. It gave us the ability to go past a 100 yards shot and zip it back, or Tom would take one off and just ease it in a 100 yards. So it was a real nice number to get that gap in right from pitch to 50 to 54 degree. And then the only thing we changed with the 60, because we like to keep that 60 in, he likes the array of shots he has with that, is just change the grind slightly. We put a TW grind in, which had a little bit more bounce than what he currently has in his standard bounce, which was 10 degrees. It just gave him that little bit more option of when he's opening the club face or he wants to play that slightly low one into the green. The connection with the ground was a lot crisper. It was actually coming off a little bit lower, which was nice to see. It wasn't popping up and a little weak. That's the TW wedge, which has a little bit more bounce at 11. See, that's nip. It's definitely coming off lower, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right.
look at that. Now, yes!
I think you'd be really happy with that.
Nice, really good. It's coming off low and it's going to zip.
I love
Okay?
that. That is like, what's chicks dig the spin? That's what Tiger says, isn't it?
Right. So you can see there, show you from the bottom here.
Span.
See, it's just going to give you
Yeah.
that little bit of option. When you open that up,
Yeah.
you're not going to see a real harsh leading edge.
Yeah.
And you've obviously got a little bit of relief there. You still can use the bounce.
TW grind.
It was coming off a little bit lower launch angle, which meant we were getting the right shape for them shots. So all in all, a real good fit with the wedges.
So what an amazing experience that was. I think I've maybe been here 6 or 7 times for different fittings with different manufacturers. And this new TaylorMade lab is an unbelievable facility. Every head combination, every shaft combination, drivers, putters, wedges, irons, the whole thing is available to you here. Amazing TrackMan technology, beautiful range here at the Belfry. Can't always guarantee it's going to be weather like it is today. But I think it is worth saying this is publicly available, so you can book this. Anyone can come and have the same experience that I've had today. And getting fitted for golf clubs, I think, just remains an unbelievably overlooked thing by so many club golfers. I've been through this process a few times, but still today there were 3 or 4 sort of eye-opening moments for me. An additional bit of bounce in wedges that I look, or a slightly different grind, in wedges that I already loved, as I think is helping straighten out some of my pitching flights. I think a set of irons that I really love, but a slightly lighter, more helpful shaft, gave me something much more pleasing to use. And I arrived with a big problem with my driving and sort of have left with renewed confidence, basically, that there is a driver out there for me and it isn't just me, and I have been using equipment that hasn't been correctly fitted for me. So I think that even for someone who's using relatively dialed in equipment already, I'm leaving with 3 really big things that are going to improve my golf, improve the enjoyment of golf, and obviously, hopefully, improve my scoring.